Hi, welcome everybody. This is Principles of Microeconomics. I'm Professor Harriet Stranahan, and we'll be talking about material from Chapter 1 today. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about how economists think about problems. What are some of the basic underlying assumptions and postulates that economists use in order to solve problems? Understand and learn how to use 8 guideposts for economic thinking. We'll be talking about normative and positive economics, but mostly you will be studying those. And then also there's some common pitfalls. So we could talk about John Maynard Keynes. He's a really famous economist from after the Depression. If you've taken macroeconomics, you've probably heard about John Maynard Keynes. Basically, what he says is that we're not going to be here to learn facts, learn lists of things to memorize. Rather, what we are here in in a microeconomics class is to understand how economists think and how to understand the ways that they analyze problems. So economics is a method rather than a doctrine, an apparatus of a mind, a technique of thinking. And so we're going to be talking about some of those things today. So what's economics about? One key basic assumption is that we have unlimited desires. We have unlimited wants and desires. There's always something that we want more of. Now, we all don't want the same things. This is very subjective. So I would like a longer vacation, more funds in my retirement. Some of you guys would like better grades, a more handsome boyfriend or girlfriend, a nicer car. There's always something that we would like to have more of. And so because of unlimited desires, what economists say is that we all face scarcity. Now, scarcity is not what you usually think about. Scarcity means, wow, a purple unicorn, now that's scarce. Well, that's not at all what economists mean. What economists mean is that we have this idea of scarcity. We have this idea of scarcity. Let's see if I can make this baby work. We got some ink tools, pen tools. I want to draw, man. All right. So basically what we've got is this idea of scarcity, so important. And scarcity means something totally different than it does to normal people, because now we're economists. So scarcity means that there is less of a good or resource freely available than people would like. It has a totally different definition than usual. So there is less of a good or resource freely available than people would like. So how about air? Is air scarce? Is there less of it freely available than you would like? No. Clean air in Jacksonville is wonderful. Clean air is not scarce in Jacksonville. How about apples? Are apples scarce? Well, you go to Publix, it doesn't look like apples are scarce. You go to Publix, it looks like there's 12 different kinds of apples and there's thousands of them. How can those be scarce? Well, let's go back. There's less of a good or resource freely available than you would like. Do you get as many apples as you would like for free? No, not unless you have an orchard. If you have an orchard in your backyard, then okay, apples are not scarce. For the rest of us, apples are scarce. Is that clear? So we have to have new definitions for many of these basic words, and we're going to be doing that throughout this entire course. So how about, what do economists mean when they state that a good is scarce? Try and look at these multiple choice questions. These are all from the test bank, from the very test bank that you'll be getting quizzes and exams and those sorts of things. It would be D, right? The amount of the good that people would like exceeds the supply freely available. That's what we mean by scarce if we're an economist. So we have these unlimited wants, therefore we have scarcity. There's not as much of a good freely available as we would like. So we've got to make choices. We can't have everything. We can't have more of everything. We can't have a new car, a longer vacation, more money in my retirement. Okay, I can't have all of those things. I've got to choose among them. So scarcity implies that we have to have trade-offs, that we're always making choices among alternatives. And so anytime that we're making choices among alternatives, we're trading off one thing for another. So what we're trading off, that's the cost, because there's a cost to everything. Every single time I take a longer vacation, I can't have more money in my retirement. Does that make sense? We're always trading off one thing for another. So we'll be talking about what we call opportunity cost, which is the highest valued alternative that we give up. We have unlimited wants, therefore we have scarcity. We have scarcity, therefore we have to trade off. If we're going to choose one thing, we have to give up something else. What we give up, our highest valued alternative that we give up, that's called opportunity cost. And again, this is a brand new word that nobody else uses except economists. So scarcity means you have to make choices, because we don't have unlimited resources to make everything. So let's talk about what is a resource. Resources are inputs or anything that is used to produce goods and services. In general, resources such as land, labor, some of those things, they are not freely available. So resources are ingredients or inputs used to produce economic goods. So we have human resources. Those are things like knowledge and skill. Physical resources, things like machines, infrastructure, buildings. Natural resources, that's anything that comes from the earth or land, sky, etc. So that might be ocean, access, oil, minerals, fertile land, things of that nature. So resources are limited, and therefore our ability to produce goods and services are limited, and that means that we have scarcity with regard to resources, and we're still trading off what should we produce with these resources. So does the richest man face scarcity? Seems like he has infinite budget for whatever he would choose to purchase. Again, according to an economist, a rich man does face scarcity because he doesn't have everything freely available as much as he would like. According to a normal person, no, that rich guy does not face scarcity, okay? He just doesn't, not according to a normal person. Okay, so this book is big on scarcity versus poverty. So poverty is a subjective measure. It actually varies from state to state. If you're in New York and a family of two, you would be in poverty if you made less than $18,000. In Mississippi, you would be poor if you made less than $7,000 for two people. So it's a subjective criteria. Scarcity, on the other hand, as we have defined it, is definitely objective. Scarcity happens. It's fact-based. It's not influenced by differences in personal opinion or income, and it can't be eliminated. There's scarcity. There's not as many goods and services available freely as we would like. So anytime we have scarcity, we have to make trade-offs. So if we have some set of goods and services, who gets them? Who gets the goods and services? How are they rationed? This is another kind of economist word. Rationing is some criteria that must be used to decide who gets the goods. So we could ration our goods so that everybody gets the same amount. This is kind of like what government does a lot, is they have something to distribute, such as health care to the elderly, and pretty much everybody gets the same amount. You all get options for the same Medicare policies. Social Security, public school, employees' health plans at work, these are all kind of the methods of rationing. Who gets that health care? Everybody gets the same amount. Another way of rationing is first come, first serves. And that is pretty typical. So when people value the good a lot more than the price, you're going to rush to be the first in line to buy it. So this might be the fastest virtual connection gets the tickets to the big games, or Hamilton. There was a big, you guys have obviously heard of Hamilton on Broadway. And so there was a huge controversy because these, professional ticket purchasers were getting in there, buying all the tickets for $600 and reselling them for $1,400 or something ridiculous. But yeah, they were the first come, first serve. They got it. Maybe at Christmas, you want to get that special, that beautiful, huge TV at Walmart where they're giving 20 of them away for $3 a piece. You would want to be the first in line to get it. So that would be one way of how goods are distributed. If you can get there first, you get the goods. And then lastly, another way of rationing, which we don't usually think of it in those terms, but economists do, is price. Who is willing to pay for it? Who is willing to pay for the apple? They get the apple. So price determines allocation of goods and services in our society. So all these are ways of rationing goods. Again, we have unlimited wants or desires, therefore we have scarcity. We must make choices among different alternatives, and we have a trade-off there. Everything has a cost, because you're always giving something up every time a choice is made. And that's what we're going to call opportunity cost. The value of the highest valued alternative that you give up is going to be called the opportunity cost. So let's talk about some of these guidelines of the economic thought process. So this is kind of how economists think through problems. It's the same way that engineers are taught. In fact, professors of economics do teach in the College of Engineering because of this idea of marginal thinking. So we'll be talking about a lot of these guidelines. All right, so resources are costly and every decision entails an opportunity cost. There's always a trade-off. If I go snow skiing, then I can't work to pay my bills. If I go to class today, then I can't be sleeping. So we all have a highest valued alternative, what it is that we're giving up in order to do something. Everybody's is different. So one person may choose to be listening to this lecture. What are they giving up? Time at work. Somebody else's highest valued alternative may be sleeping. Somebody else's highest valued alternative may be having fun with their kids. So basically, we're always giving up something. And we're going to define this idea of opportunity cost, and it is so key throughout this entire course. It's the value of your next best alternative. All right, so let's just say I have 3 candy bars. If you were standing in a face-to-face classroom with me, I would be showing you a Snickers, an Almond Joy, or a Skittles. And I would say, okay, who here likes chocolate, or who here likes candy? Somebody in the front row shoots their hand up and says, I love candy. Anyway, so I say, well, rank them. Well, if it were me, I would say, yes, the best is Snickers, the second is Almond Joy, and the third is Skittles. So I chose Skittles. And then my next question to that person in the front row is, well, what's the opportunity cost of you choosing that Skittles? Is it the fact that you had to give up Almond Joy? No, excuse me, Snickers. I'm going to say Snickers is the best. Okay, what is the opportunity cost of you taking that Snickers? Is it both Almond Joy and Skittles? Are you giving up just Almond Joy, or are you giving up just Skittles? What is the opportunity cost? What is your best alternative to Snickers? The answer would be the opportunity cost is Almond Joy. So that would be B right here. I don't know how, I obviously don't know how to use this pen. I'm going to have to learn how to do that one of these days. That would be B. All right, so there's always a trade-off. So economists, I don't know if you know this or not, we are famous for saying there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, if you pay for my lunch, it seems free to me. For any normal person walking down that hallway, it would seem like a free lunch. Here, I'm going to pay for your lunch. It's free, right? Well, to an economist, no. There's always a cost, even to a lunch that is plopped down in front of you that you never paid for. There's still a cost. So even if I pay for your lunch, there's still a cost for you. It's not free. You have to give up something in order to go to lunch with me. You could be sleeping, you could be having fun with your friends, you could be eating some other lunch, right? When you choose this free lunch, you're also giving up something else. That's why there's no such thing that's free, not even a free lunch. Does that make sense? So the expression, there's no such thing as a free lunch, implies that okay, the answer here would be C. That's going to be C. Basically, the opportunity costs are incurred when resources are used to produce goods and services. That's very true. Some people would say the person's time is free, but there is the real cost of goods and services used to produce the lunch. Well, I already paid for those. I already paid the real cost of goods and services because I paid for them, and I'm giving you the lunch for free. So the person's time is free? No. A person's time is never free. You're always giving up something. Let's see here. Which of the following are scarce? Pleasant working conditions? Absolutely, those are scarce. How about low-cost housing? Yes. Free time for recreation? Yes. So all of the above are scarce. So again, these are just multiple choice questions that come from the test bank. How about this idea? Government should provide goods such as healthcare, education, and highways because it can provide them for free. Obviously, this is false. Clearly, there's a cost to a highway, right? I had to give up tax dollars. I could have been spending that on a longer vacation. So there you go. There's clearly a cost, even if government provides them. All right, so let's take a look at this idea. Individuals choose purposefully. What are you trying to accomplish today? Let's just say I need to go to class, I want to get exercise, I want to have fun with my friends. Well, what economists assume is that what may look reckless, what may look like it's not very well organized, is indeed very highly organized. I know that when my son sleeps until noon, it's very highly organized. He is acting very purposefully, right? He is choosing what time of the day to sleep, what time of the day to have fun, what time of the day to study, what time of the day to work. So basically what we assume is that people act purposefully. Now they all have their own internal clocks. They all have their own internal goals and obstacles, but they act purposefully. They are going to do everything that they need to do with the least amount of time, the least amount of money, and the least amount of effort. That does not make them lazy. It makes them purposeful. They economize on their actions. They are rational decision makers. So choosing purposefully is what is known as rational behavior. So drug addict is rationally trying to get a fix for his overpowering desire to sate his addiction. Is it rational to go and shoot up with heroin? Well, economists assume that it is. If that's what somebody's doing, then that's what they need to do. They're acting purposefully. And so we don't do the whole moral thing. We don't say, oh, this is so immoral, this is terrible, this is awful consequence, blah, blah, blah. We just say, oh, that guy must be addicted. He must be acting rationally. So, Jim enjoys the feeling of wind in his hair, enough to ride his motorcycle without a helmet, even though he fully realizes the potential for injury it creates by not wearing one in the unlikely event he is in an accident. To an economist, Jim is making a rational choice. B. That would be B right here. He's definitely making a rational choice. All right, incentives matter. This is another one. Economists are all about incentives. If we want to reduce soda consumption, we would recommend a tax on sodas. If we want to increase healthcare consumption, we would recommend Obamacare, a subsidy for medical insurance. So incentives definitely matter. And incentives, they don't have to be money. They can be higher grades. You're going to change your action if you could get a higher grade, better social status, better work reviews. So it's not always money that motivates people. It's a lot of other things. So who wants to dance? Anybody want to get up right now, wherever you are, if you're in the library, wherever? Who's going to dance? Oh, nobody wants to dance. All right. Well, how about... Oh, yeah! Come on! Can't we dance? All right. How about if I give you 20 points on the next quiz? 20 points? 10 extra? 20? How many? All right, so the point is, I do this in class and nobody dances, okay? Nobody comes up to dance. Not until I say, hey, how about some extra credit points on the quiz? And then invariably, I have 2, 3, 5, 10 people showing up to dance. And it's pretty fun, because that's a good song. Anyway, all right. The most fundamental concept in economics is that A, this is so fundamental. Changes in incentives influence behavior in a predictable way. People will be less likely to choose an option as it becomes more expensive. All right? This is another really fundamental concept, and this is kind of what we teach when we teach engineering, is marginal thinking. Marginal means extra or additional. In general, humans do use marginal thinking to make decisions. So what is the marginal benefit of another hour of studying? Is it worth the cost that I'm giving up? I'm not going to say, is it worth it to study at all versus not study at all? Rather, I'm already studying. Should I study that extra hour? Yes or no? I'm always going to look at the benefit versus the cost of that one extra unit. How about, is the marginal benefit of another day of a cruise vacation worth the cost? Because I'd have to cut Christmas vacation short. Is it worth it? You're going to be looking at the marginal. Does that kind of make sense? We, in general, know that that is how humans make decisions. It's on the margin. And it's always relative to some base case scenario. So anytime anybody asks you, what is a marginal benefit or marginal cost of changing behavior or consuming one more unit or doing anything, you have to always reference it to a base case. Let's do an example here. Let's just say our choice is, we're definitely hungry, okay? We walk into this restaurant, we are famished. So we're going to order a burger and fries. It's going to set us back $2. Well, the alternative is I could order a value meal. I could either order burger and fries or a value meal, which is burger, fries, and a large drink. So how am I going to try and make this decision? I'm going to look at the marginal benefit. What's the marginal benefit? I get a large drink. But what's the cost? I've got to pay 25 cents. So relative to the base case, you're going to say, hey, do I want a large drink or do I want 25 cents? Does that make sense? You're not going to look at average cost. You're not going to look at any of that stuff. You're always looking at marginal. So while waiting in line to buy 2 tacos for 75 cents and a medium drink for 80, Jordan notices that the restaurant has a value meal containing 3 tacos and a medium drink for $2.50. For Jordan, the marginal cost of getting a 3rd taco would be everybody get this? B, 20 cents. Do you guys get that? Because it's basically $2.30 versus $2.50. So the extra taco will be 20 cents. All right, let's keep at it. All right, more information. We do like more information as consumers. We do not like uncertainty, okay? Humans, that's kind of another kind of underlying assumption that we don't really like uncertainty. Humans do not like uncertainty. In fact, we'll pay to avoid uncertainty. So we're going to pay with our time. Let's just say I'm going to try and find a new house. I got to move. I need a new house. So this is a huge investment. And I'm going to be looking at neighborhoods, school zones, country club areas, green space, access to roads, etc. So I don't want to be stuck with a house that I hate. So what are you going to do? You're going to search, and you're going to continue to search to find the best house possible. And you'll continue to search until the cost of more searching is greater than the benefit. You know, you have searched so much, spent so much time, so much effort in order to find this house. You feel pretty certain about all of the neighborhoods and the characteristics and this, that, and the other. To search more probably won't give you any more good options. And then you got to look at the cost. Should I spend another day searching? I'm going to have to give up work, etc. You kind of get the idea. Is that information is important, but we're never going to have perfect certainty. We will never have perfect certainty because it's too costly. So that's kind of the idea, is that search cost is very important. It's very important in marketing and branding and those sorts of things that we'll see in a minute. And also, getting more information, reducing uncertainty does have a cost. You're giving up something as a result of it. So you're going to look and you're going to equalize the benefit with the cost, the extra benefit with the extra cost of searching. So you're more likely to spend effort to acquire information before purchasing a cell phone or a can opener, and why? The perfect answer frames it in terms of marginal benefit and marginal cost of search. That's my hint. So what's the marginal benefit of search with a cell phone versus a can opener? Okay, obviously you're going to search for the cell phone. It's very costly to make a mistake. There's so many more options, so much more to think about. A huge benefit to search if you're talking about a cell phone. Cost, I bet, is about the same. Although you got to consider that you're searching for longer. So name brands, they lower the cost of searching. They save time and effort. If you're ever in a marketing class, you're going to talk a lot about branding because that's key to marketing. But it's also very important for economists as well, because we realize that information is really costly for consumers to get, and therefore branding really helps them save time on their decision making. If I bought one Mazda and it worked beautifully, you might go ahead and buy another Mazda. You like the brand. Knowing that consumers often repurchase the same brand again and again, firms are totally going to invest in branding their products and standing behind their brands, trying to do a really good job, because it's very, very profitable to have a good brand. So, key point, branding lowers the cost of search and increases the likelihood of repurchase, which makes it very profitable. So, do you guys remember what happened, I think about a year ago or maybe 6 months ago with VW? They advertised these diesel cars as super green. Man, you want to be the greenest person driving around in this country. You'll buy this VW diesel because it rocks. The emissions are so low. And so they had this huge advertising campaign saying, we are an amazing green company. And so what happened is it was this conspiracy from like middle management up that basically faked the emissions data. So they would have really, really, really low emissions if they were just idling in place, but the minute they put it in gear, it became like this dirty, smoggy, nasty car that didn't even meet U.S. emissions standards. So they got in a lot of trouble. What happened to their brand? Their stock went down a lot, especially at first. I think that they're starting to try and figure out the logistics of how they're going to deal with this. I'm not sure where they stand now, but their brand took a huge hit. Very, very unprofitable. So economic actions, they often have a direct and a secondary effect. We economists are really good at policy making because we can predict, if we pass this new policy, what is likely to happen? What is the direct effect, and then what is the indirect effect or secondary effect? Primary effect is often immediate and visible, but the secondary effect might come later through changes in behavior. An example, Congress passed a new highway mileage standards mandating that cars had to become more fuel efficient. Well, that's great. Fuel efficiency is wonderful, and we've continually done this from the 1960s, and voila, our cars are way more fuel efficient as a result of these regulations. But the secondary effect that happens is that when you make cars more fuel efficient, you make them smaller and lighter, and you get a lot more highway deaths. One thing, because the cars are smaller, and it's easy to drive. It's so cheap to drive because you get this great gas mileage, so you get an increase in driving in more unsafe vehicles, and you get more highway deaths. So a direct effect is, yeah, cars are great, more fuel efficient. Secondary effect, well, you're a little more likely to die now on the road. Let's take a look at this. This is a good little video.
Decades calculating how government regulations should be crafted to save the most lives. Graham is watched almost in disbelief as the government's poured resources into fighting minor risks.
Allah is out, cyclamate, maybe that.
As we saw with crime, one problem is headline hysteria. Politicians act when the public is frightened. The public is frightened by what it sees in the press.
What is new is not necessarily the biggest public health problem. The mysterious, the bizarre, the speculative make good news. But the day-to-day problems people have in traffic crashes as they end up in the emergency, thousands of Americans every day, that is the kind of problem that we need to get attention to if the media doesn't have a hook to say.
What really saves lives, Graham and others, are simple things like smoke detectors, better crash protectors on highways, or just painting more lines in the middle of the road. Boring remedies for ordinary problems. But money spent here would save far more lives than spending billions on things like asbestos removal.
There are so many hazardous chemicals and pesticides in the environment now, virtually every human being in the world is affected by them.
Scientists say many of our fears about chemicals are ridiculous. But just because scientists now can find microscopic quantities of poisons doesn't mean that those tiny doses hurt people.
The evidence on pesticide residue in food as a health problem is virtually non-existent. It's speculation.
But wait a second. Everyone knows we're in the midst of a cancer epidemic. Cancer rates are skyrocketing. Again, what everyone knows is simply wrong. Some cancer rates, like lung cancer, have increased, mainly because so many Americans took up smoking in the 40s and 50s. But other cancers, like uterine and stomach cancer, have gone down. Overall, cancer rates have stayed relatively level. Epidemiologists and cancer specialists at the National Cancer Institute, the American Cancer Society, Harvard, Yale, Mayo Clinic, and elsewhere. More cancers are recorded now because we have better early detection. Today, more people live long enough to get cancer. But all the experts say there's no epidemic. And while it pays to be cautious about industrial chemicals, the public's fears are way out of proportion.
Why not try to get rid of every bit of this? I want zero risk. My life, my daughters, my wife, we all want zero risk. The problem is that every citizen in this country demands zero risk. We would bankrupt.
Ralph Nader says every school bus should have seatbelts.
$1,800 more per bus to equip a bus with seatbelts is a pretty good protection.
Makes sense. To require belts in cars, why not buses? But when the Harvard School of Public Health analyzed the benefits of belts on school buses, they concluded belts weren't worth the cost. Kids are much more likely to be killed getting off a bus. Inside the bus, they're relatively safe.
But given that it might save a dozen lives with it, why not spend money on seatbelts? You're engaging in statistical measure. When you decide to spend $50 million to save a few lives, when you could spend $50 million to save $100 or $1,000, that's big.
Consider this. Some safety regulations may even kill more people than they save. Some consumer groups want the Federal Aviation Administration to require infant seats for children under 2.
If we buckle our children up at 50 miles per hour, why not 550 miles per hour?
Why not? One reason is that if I can't put my baby in my lap, it means I have to buy another ticket. This makes flying more expensive. Flying is much safer than driving, so flying costs more.
That family will then be more likely to choose to drive than fly. And that will be the issue to do that. So this would be a rule that would work. It would result in more people being killed in driving than would have been saved on road.
So far, most of Congress apparently believes that critics like Graham are right. The bill has to pass. But comparisons like that are rarely made. People say, how dare you consider cost?
So, value is subjective. So value is subjective and it's determined individually. For instance, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Value is subjective and differs for everyone. The value that consumers place on goods and services is not the price. The value does not equal price. Price is something totally different that is determined in a marketplace. The price of a PVC pipe connector is about $4.25, but its value is immense when you have a leak. So the value is much different than the price. A Hummer is priced at $49,000. I value it at $0, or as much as I could possibly resell it for. So basically everybody has different marginal values, therefore they have different demands. They have different costs because we all face different opportunity costs for our time. Values can be different for every single person. So, pitfalls to avoid in economic thinking. We have ceteris paribus, which basically means everything has to be equal except for a single variable that changes. And this is because then economists can make a prediction. We can't make a prediction with 12 different things changing. We can make a prediction if one thing changes. let's just say we have a recession. Lots of people lose their jobs, kind of like 2008. We had this huge recession. Unemployment skyrocketed. And interest rates fell like crazy too. We had the Fed step in, and basically they came in and they lowered interest rates. Well, when you lower interest rates, what's that going to do to the demand for housing? Well, if you lower interest rates, getting a loan is a lot cheaper, so maybe demand for housing is going to go up when interest rates go down. But at the same time, we have unemployment, crazy unemployment. Everybody was losing their jobs. What does that do to the demand for housing? Well, when income goes down, demand for housing goes down. So the point is that when you have this extraordinary recession and falling interest rates, we can't tell what's going to happen. We need ceteris paribus to the rescue, right? We need just one thing to change. We'll say, well, high unemployment, demand for housing down. Or you can say really, really low interest rates, demand for housing up. But if more than one thing changes, you just cannot make a good prediction. And so that's why we use ceteris paribus. Another pitfall to avoid, good intentions do not necessarily result in good outcomes. So this is kind of like the Kyoto protocols in the year 2000. This is a lot like you have a direct effect and a secondary effect. So I think this kind of goes hand in hand. But this is another example of a direct effect and an indirect effect. So we had back in the, I think it was 90s or sometime, we had the Kyoto Protocol. I guess in the year 2000, government passed rules for carbon credits. When the individuals planted new forests, they got carbon credits because forests absorb a ton of carbon. And so it seems like, what a great idea. You plant a forest, you get a carbon credit because you're helping with climate change, right? So the problem was that people rushed in to get carbon credits, and they did that by cutting down old growth forests, which are much better carbon sinks than brand new planted forests. So it was a nice idea to give carbon credits for newly planted forests, but we've got to consider what some people might do as a result of that. Maybe not pass that exact policy. That seemed like a terrible idea. How about legislation passed to require family leave for new mothers? How's that going to work? Well, it may be fine if you already have a job, but if you're looking for a job and you're a small business, who are you going to hire? 30-something female or a 30-something male? You might choose the male because you don't want to give them the paid family leave. So you have a secondary effect, but you've got to always be looking for that secondary, the primary and the secondary. All right. Associations is not causation. We get this a lot in the news. But we need to look at whether it's correlation. They're just tending to move together, or one is actually causing the other. We have a very high correlation in the number of storks and the birth rate in Denmark. Does that mean that more storks are causing babies? No. The start of the 20th century, number of radios and number of people in insane asylums. That was a big statistic that people looked at, but it doesn't mean one causes the other. Another pitfall, fallacy of composition. What's true for the individual is true for the group is generally false. As a fisherman, I need money. I got kids in college, I got mortgages, so I'm going to go out there, get the biggest boat, the highest, best technology, and catch the most fish that I possibly can, because I need to support my family and I want to do that well. So, as a lone fisherman, you're going to tech up and just bring in massive amounts of fish. The problem is, if all fishermen did that and they took as many fish as they possibly could, it's not going to benefit the whole group. You're not going to have a sustainable stock of fish. nobody's going to be able to make any money next year. So what's good for the individual is not necessarily what's good for the group. Positive versus normative economics. I want you to read that on your own. And that's about it. We have scarcity, trade-offs, opportunity cost, no free lunch. We went over that. Subjective value and subjective opportunity costs, rational decision makers and incentives. We talked about marginal thinking, how information is very costly to obtain and perfect certainty is impossible, and then the importance of branding. Actors will do more of an action if the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost. And then we also studied the pitfalls for the most part. And that is 45 minutes well spent, I hope. Please email me if you would like to see me in person, see me virtually. If you have any questions at all, please get in touch.